Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
It's episode 2 of a brand new year. Hello, 2023. Today on Rainbow Country, new year, new tech, with Canadian entrepreneur and tech creator Steve Seguin. We'll talk about his Zoom alternative, Video Ninja, and more. Plus, later on in Hour 1, the story behind Martha and the Muffins' Canadian hit, Echo Beach. That and more on episode 335, so stay tuned. The Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Carol Pope.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Segato.
Hi, I'm Gord Depp with the Spoons. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto, and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on feedspot.com. So today, it's a brand new year, and I wanted to use this second episode of 2023 to talk about technology, especially Canadian technology, with a spotlight on a Zoom alternative that was created, I believe, back in 2017. He's an entrepreneur, he's a tech creator, he's Canadian, and he's here to talk about, like I just mentioned, his Zoom alternative called Video Ninja, the letters VDO Ninja. Steve Seguin. Steve Seguin, we'll find out how to say his name when I chat with him. We'll find out all about Video Ninja, as well as get his thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, in 2023, and so much more. By the way, America's The Tech Guy, Leo Laporte, whose radio show, The Tech Guy, was running up until the end of 2022 and heard on over 160 stations across America. And Leo Laporte was one of the first early adopters of Video Ninja. Plus, later on in Hour 1, the story behind Martha and the Muffins' Canadian hit, Echo Beach. And in Hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some Canadian disco, some Canadian queer Latin, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 335 through Rainbow Country. And our first stop is what I like to call the Rainbow Country School for Canadian Gay History. And on this session, from historian, author, and activist Tim McCaskill, censorship of Canada's LGBT community.
Glad Day Bookshop started in Gerald Molenhauer's backpack around 1972. Gerald figured that to build community, we needed access to our history, our culture, our literature, our porn. He started schlepping books and magazines from one queer event to another to sell. As the collection got bigger, he moved it to a hall in the commune where he lived, in an old house on Seton Street in downtown Toronto. In those days, to see the books, you needed to phone first to make an appointment to come over. Glad Day finally opened a fully fledged store in the late 1970s, and that's when the more public profiles started causing problems. An issue with the Canadian book business is that a lot of titles are published elsewhere and therefore need to be imported, and that means they all have to pass through Canada Customs. And Canada Customs in those days was not about to let dirty, smutty, queer literature cross the border to corrupt innocent Canadians. Glad Day started having books seized and shipments blocked starting in 1977. It got worse in the 80s. Even The Joy of Gay Sex got banned as obscene. And even if books got through customs, they were still not safe. In April 82, police raided Glad Day and charged employee Kevin Orr with selling obscene material. And that wouldn't be the last raid. Glad Day was embroiled in court cases for years. Some American publications actually started producing special Canadian editions with pages blanked out to get them across the border. In 1983, partners Bruce Smythe and Jim Deva started a gay bookstore in Vancouver called Little Sisters. Little Sisters was soon experiencing customs seizures as well. What was infuriating was that big mainstream bookstores were now importing and selling many of the same titles without a problem. It was just small gay-run bookstores that were being targeted. Little Sisters also fought the customs seizures through the courts, but it took years and thousands of dollars before the Supreme Court finally decided that the seizures were a violation of the Charter of Rights. That was in 2000. Customs still had the right to stop materials, but the onus was on them to prove they were obscene. Customs censorship finally began to grind to a halt. By this time, queer material was widely available, and the digital age meant that borders were being largely irrelevant anyway. But today, both Glad Day and Little Sisters continue to operate as bookstores. Glad Day is actually the oldest surviving gay bookstore in the world. So if you are in Toronto or Vancouver, be sure to check them out. They're part of the living history of our community. This is Tim McCaskill, author of Queer Progress.
Hi, I'm Gord Depp at the Spoons. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, Video Ninja. Steve Seguin, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, how are you?
I am well. First of all, am I saying your last name correctly? You say it for me.
I say it Seguin, although it's said differently across the world.
Steve Seguin, hello. First of all, I have to say thank you for being here. To have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. But I want to start here with yourself. You and I share something in common, and I can ask you to guess what that is, which you will never guess, or you can just say, Mark, tell me what it is.
Mark, tell me what it is.
You and I both play violin.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
that's fantastic.
I studied violin in school. Up through high school, for like 9 years.
That's about equal to me. I started in elementary school and stopped when I graduated high school.
Yeah, and, got trained in music theory. I went to high school for the performing arts, all that sort of good stuff. Did you enjoy playing violin?
I chose to play violin. As a kid. It's the instrument I wanted to play. But once I started realizing I was not as good as everyone else in our youth symphony. It started to really dampen things a bit.
Did you do like the Kiwanis festivals and stuff?
No, just we had a local youth symphony, but and I play with it during the school year. But I was a second violin, and I could not sight read as well as everyone else could.
It's harder than it looks. Let's just say that.
I feel like I'm dyslexic at sometimes, so trying to read sheet music not the easiest.
So you are, in my opinion, you are a tech guru. We're here to talk about technology. It's a new year. There's also a new-ish platform that can be seen as, again, in my opinion, an alternative to Zoom. Video Ninja, VDO, the letters VDO, Ninja. Let's start here again. In a nutshell, Video Ninja. What is Video Ninja all about?
Video Ninja is a live streaming production tool. I consider it like a jack of all trades or a Swiss Army knife of functionality. It primarily focuses on letting people who are trying to do live productions have the tools to do that. So ingesting live video with very little latency and having a peer-to-peer connection rather than like a server-based connection that is traditional. So every participant directly connects to everyone else in this small production room.
And you created Video Ninja. You're still creating it, making tweaks and updates. Why did you create this platform?
I was originally interested in the idea back in 2017. I was in the live video production space, trying to make shows and tools for another company out in Toronto. And it didn't really get much traction, that kind of concept that I was working on the side. But once COVID struck, the need for this tool became reemergent. So people couldn't afford or couldn't find webcams, and kids and school teachers needed to go live. And so this tool allowed you to bring your smartphone into your computer and use that as a webcam. And it just kind of exploded from there. So I just doubled down on the functionality that people were asking for.
So I just asked you why you created Video Ninja, but what inspired it? Was there a flashpoint that inspired this particular creation for you?
I love this space. I'm audiovisual. Like I was like an AV geek in high school, for example, and I also love software development. I love being productive and having people appreciate what I build. So to me, it's a little bit of a passion working on this, and then the added benefit of people just being interested in it. But I get excited by inventing and creating things people want. So I guess that would be the reason why, the inspiration.
And who do you think Video Ninja is designed for? Who is the ideal candidate for this free platform?
I try to keep it very broad. So it's used anywhere from a church to podcasts to esports, to people who just want to use it to turn their smartphone into a wireless webcam. Although the average person who seems to gravitate towards it are either professional video producers who want total control over everything, or it's those who are willing to tinker a little bit to use a free open source tool to do something that they might be able to do with another platform, but they prefer to kind of do it themselves.
So OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. This is a free open source software for video recording and live streaming. Did you design Video Ninja to work in conjunction with, to work in concert with OBS?
Originally, that was the intended point of it, yeah. Originally, it was actually called OBS Ninja, and changed the name to avoid any sort of conflict with naming. But around 2017, when I was playing with live production and this technology called WebRTC, which was emerging, I realized that I could bring WebRTC video into OBS as a browser source. A browser source is really intended more for overlays, graphical overlays at the time. And so being able to bring video in through what is traditionally an overlay system opened up a lot of opportunities, because you no longer had to write custom OBS plugins or use proprietary software. You had access to a large community of open source tools built into the browser. And so without having to download anything, without having to deal with proprietary video tooling, I could unlock the ability to do low latency live streaming video without servers into OBS. To me, that was super exciting, and I tried to share it with a lot of people, but back in 2017, there wasn't much of an appetite for it.
So can you use Video Ninja like by itself? Can you
Absolutely.
Okay. But there isn't necessarily a recording aspect to it.
There's a built-in recorder now, so you can record both video that's coming into your computer from the remote guest. You can also trigger a remote recording. So if that guest has bad internet and you're doing an interview, you could always have their computer record a local copy that you can upload after.
And is Video Ninja, because you and I were talking right now, we're talking just audio wise. We don't have any video feed per se. Can you do that with Video Ninja? Just have like an audio aspect to it? Or
Absolutely.
does the video camera have to be involved?
No. I've been spinning off versions of Video Ninja that are more customized by default for certain applications. So there's one application I spun off recently called the Comms app, and it's audio only, but the little niche it fills is it has multiple groups. It's kind of like an intercom system, so you can join by pressing different buttons which group you want to tune into and participate into. And for producers who might have backstage talent, on-air camera crew, they can have one page open up on their phone or desktop and jump between numerous little subgroups. And that's purely audio, because in that sort of situation, you don't want the load and bandwidth of video.
So you have a background in creating some startup companies. How did you get involved in technology in the first place? How did this all come about for you, Steve?
I would probably blame my father.
Father knows best.
Yeah. I think I was like 6 years old. My dad was a pretty big computer geek back in the day. And he would leave the computer, like it was like an IBM XT at the time, one of the first IBM PCs, and it would be in my bedroom, and he'd spend up until like 2 a.m. installing, formatting, and I would just sit at my bed watching him do that. And that triggered my fascination with technology, I think. And ever since that early age, I gravitated to programming on computers, using computers, building computers.
I have a random question for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Are you a fan of Tim Hortons?
I love the rice caps.
Okay. Did you not create some 3D printed Tim Hortons coffee cups?
I don't think that was me. I don't think that was me. I do 3D printing.
Mm-hmm. But did you not do something based on your brother?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
And a car that
so that was not a coffee cup. That was a coffee cup
holder. Yes. That's what I meant. A coffee cup holder.
Yeah. My brother has BMWs. He likes to collect them, but they have like this very European sort of cup holder, and it doesn't fit like a large double. And that's a big problem for people in the GTA. And so he asked me to design and print one for him.
Of course. What else would a brother do but to ask his brother to design and print out a coffee cup holder? Crazy.
Yeah. So it replaces kind of like the existing coffee cup center area. But then he started showing it to his community, and they all started wanting one. So I ended up printing over a dozen of these coffee cup holders for the community, and I eventually just said, I don't have time for that.
Who got time for that?
Yeah, definitely Tim Hortons, though. Everyone needs a quick coffee, right?
I live right across the street from one. And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm Eric Radford, Olympic and world champion figure skater, pianist, and composer, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.
Hitmakers is a full-service, award-winning record label and social enterprise based in Iqaluit, Nunavut. We specialize in the creating and marketing of world-class Inuit and Indigenous music, including pop, hip-hop, rock, folk, and traditional Inuit music. Hitmakers has studios in Iqaluit, Ottawa, and Toronto. The label currently works with more than 20 Inuit and Indigenous artists, and we represent and promote many more. The company was founded in 2016, and our mission is to create viable careers in the arts for Inuit and Indigenous artists through music, media, and education. Our secondary mission is to empower artists to share and strengthen their stories and culture. To learn more, please connect with us on social media or at hitmakers.com. That's hitmakers with a Z. Thanks for listening.
So it's a brand new year, it's 2023, and how is the year going for you so far? Going well? Doing well? I hope so. So I thought I would use this time to let you know what's coming up here on Rainbow Country over the next few weeks. It's a new year, it's January, and people might be thinking about maybe vacationing in 2023 and beyond. Well, later on in January, I'll be featuring Vakaya, an LGBT travel agency. Plus, next week, I'll be featuring Art Bay, a brand new event space right in the heart of downtown Toronto. All that and so much more coming up in the weeks ahead right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, I'm Paul Poirier, Canadian champion in ice dance and 3-time Olympian, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.
Okay, I have to know this. Are you in Mensa?
I never bothered, no. I know some people who are in it, and they keep reminding me they are, but no, I've never done Mensa.
Are you one of those brilliant people? Do you have a brilliant IQ or something?
No, my IQ is just a little bit above average, but not brilliant by any means. I'd say I'm an imbalanced individual. So I have strengths and weaknesses.
You are an imbalanced individual?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the sense that my working memory is not very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So things like sight reading music
Mm-hmm.
is really hard for me.
That would be really hard for anyone.
Yeah, but it's particularly hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at something more like having a deep thought, I can generally do that better than some other people. And for something like programming or research, I find that deep thought helpful because it lets me solve problems in my head without having to try to tackle it in a slower methodology. So for coding, I can see a problem and know what I need to do to get to the end of it. So I enjoy coding rather than being frustrated with constant problems.
When you were in school and going to school, did you find that the environment, I guess the educational environment, supported your way of thinking?
No, not at all.
Did you struggle in school at all?
Yeah, I had to do, in up until like grade 8, I did like a couple sessions a week in learning ed, like a special ed of sorts. It wasn't like, special ed was more, I opted out of English class to get special English language training. And that really helped, that more intimate one-on-one training, but it was infrequent. And it definitely did not carry through to university or high school even. That was only early education. So, university in particular, with long lectures, I didn't see a point in even going to lectures at that point.
What got you into creating startups originally?
I was always interested in creating businesses, but I think what got me to pull the trigger was once I graduated from university, I was doing technical news analyzing for a local tech paper of sorts. And I kept seeing in the news sort of business opportunities, sort of trends. And I really wanted to try to jump on one of those trends. And I started in my mid-20s trying to create these little businesses around these trends. Either 3D video was a trend back then, or I was trying to get more into blogs at one point, trying to get like a professional blog site going. And I kept failing at those ideas. But the point where it really changed for me was probably around 2013, 2012, where I decided to join like a technology incubator of sorts, to join.
Was that here in Toronto?
Yep. So that incubator doesn't exist anymore, but there was a bunch of business guys who had no technical lead. The technical lead left their startup and they needed someone to fill that role. And so I filled it without really any sort of agreement in place. Just let's just see what we can do. And we were really successful together. And I had my first taste of success at that point, and that made it easier for me to do more startups and be willing to take greater risks over time.
It's such a buzzword, startups, startup companies. Yeah. And I have no idea how someone does that. So you create something, and then how do you then, because I'm assuming that you look to sell it.
Yeah.
So how do you then sell something like whatever it is that you did?
A startup is a hard word to define these days, because some people consider Tesla a startup, which is, to me, a little bit odd. So the definition of a startup is a little bit hard. I like to think of it as creating a business, creating a small business. If you can't actually make money as a small startup, your chance of success and your chance of exiting is much harder. But a startup could be defined maybe as taking venture capital, or I'm not entirely sure.
Did you get angel investors, that sort of thing, when you were in that field?
So when I joined that incubator, these incubators usually give you some support, either financial or legal or business. They take a little bit of the equity in the company, and then they introduce you to an angel network. And so you spend 4 or 6 months building your product to an MVP point, and then they do like a demo day where you get to present it to their roster of angel investors in the community. And you might have like the local CBC news station there as well. And that's your big breakout moment. That's when you essentially launch your project. For me, we went through that, and then we didn't get much traction initially. We got friends and family kind of investing in us so we could continue to pay for some interns to help us develop. And then a Calgary businessman saw the tech we were using in our product that we were building, because this was like an early machine learning sort of project back in 2013, and they acquired us to be part of their company. So it was a quick exit on that particular project. The other startups, though, are not so fortunate. You can spend 5-10 years trying to grow your company. You get clientele. You constantly go through these seed rounds, and then you go through a Series A round if you're lucky, where you take a few $1 million, let's say, and you're trying to grow your company and grow your user base to the point where you can be self-sufficient. And at that point, you're a lot more attractive to further investment or anything, if you're able to show that you have growth and verified revenue.
So it's a brand new year. It's 2023. And for yourself, Steve, what do you see as the next big thing when it comes to technology? I know at one point in entertainment, 3D films was a big thing. And you were just saying you were working on creating like a 3D online thing for people to be able to use and access.
Yeah.
What do you see moving forward as the next big thing, potentially, or the next big things?
Yeah. That experience with 3D television.
And why did it die out? Because I love 3D.
Yeah. Well, I built a platform that lets anyone upload content and lets you watch content. The problem I was having was twofold. I was just getting some investment from LG Electronics to integrate this into their televisions. So you could share 3D content with all the LG televisions out there in the world. They pulled the plug on that particular project because their marketing team pulled the plug on 3D. The larger issue, though, there wasn't content. Movie theaters weren't releasing.
There wasn't enough.
They weren't even releasing it to the public.
Oh,
they weren't allowing like 3D movies really to be accessible.
Okay.
And they weren't. Where do you watch a 3D movie? Do you tune in on Netflix? There was really no content and no place to watch it. And so the only content that was available was kind of like homemade content, and that wasn't not enough for me to get users interested. hardware is also a problem. There was no sort of standard on how to watch 3D content. Every company had different ways of watching 3D. I threw myself into it thinking that, it was an early opportunity. But in hindsight, it was kind of a wasted effort. And I worry that same things could be happening with things like VR. Meta is investing lots of money in VR.
What do you think of that whole VR Meta thing?
If you have enough money and you're willing to keep throwing money at it for a long enough time, eventually maybe it could be successful, but there's so many challenges still to overcome that there's no guarantee when the time is right, Meta's actually going to be the one to carry that forward. So it seems like a huge gamble in my eyes.
Because VR has never taken off.
I remember like the Nintendo VR Virtual Boy back in the day, whatever it was, this red headset that was holographic 3D. You could play flight sims in. And it was a novelty. And then 3D was a novelty. AR with HoloLens was a novelty. It might catch on with kids if you create inexpensive headsets for games. But the way I think Meta's trying to create it is with this metaverse for everyone, especially, even adults. It just seems like it's a very uphill battle.
So what do you see on the horizon then, though, technology-wise? Do you think there is anything? Or it's just the same stuff that's there, just more of it?
I'm keen on AI.
And when you say AI, artificial intelligence, what do you mean?
Yes. So I see a lot of problems that haven't been solved, but I think AI can solve them. For example, recently, for someone like me who does coding, Microsoft has a product called GitHub Copilot, which is an AI-based coding assistant that will try to predict what you're coding and try to suggest then the next few lines of code. So if you're learning coding, or you're just lazy, let's say, or you just want someone to be like a pair programmer, someone to help you program, this Copilot is interesting, and it uses AI and tons of data, but it's not writing the program, and it's not reviewing your code. It's only making suggestions. But in the next 5-10 years, such a project could be writing the application almost entirely based with just direction from you. I would love to be able to take a website or an application and give it to an AI machine and say, make it better, fix all the problems, or make it prettier. And it can just understand what you're trying to do and return it as a better product. So to me, that's exciting. We're seeing AI already influence art. So you can say some sort of short sentence or phrase, and the AI art generator will try to generate that artistically in whatever style you want. That's pretty awesome, because now you can do like little Twitter posts, and you can have a little image that interprets what you're trying to say as an image now, without having to spend time doing thumbnails or hunting on Google or worrying about licensing. You can now just have that generated.
So you see AI is a big thing.
AI has been a big thing for the last 10 years, but I don't see that minimizing. It's just like the internet in the early 2000s. It was a big thing back then. It's only become bigger. I haven't been too excited about much in the tech world lately.
So when it comes to Video Ninja, VDO Ninja,
yep.
What do you hope this platform becomes? What would you like it to become ultimately?
I'm still trying to grow the user base at the moment. I'm around 820,000 unique visitors a month, which is growing. I'm trying to strive for maybe 1 million unique visitors by the new year, but we'll see. And I'm trying to make it broad enough that streamers and people and my friends would even find it useful, or it becomes a tool that they use. And that's increasingly becoming the case, but it's still very much a niche for professional video producers or
geeks.
A smaller audience, geeks. Yeah.
Geeks and nerds.
And it hasn't quite been adopted by the average Twitch streamer, let's say, or the average person. Zoom has been heavily adopted, but I would love to disrupt that live streaming space and have easy to use tools that unlock creative thoughts that weren't there before and become a part of the influence of the future on that front. So I would love Video Ninja to be the tool that unlocks a lot of creative freedom.
Are you in touch with Leo Laporte?
So Leo Laporte used it in the past, Video Ninja. I think he ended up using something else because it I think fit his workflow a little bit better. But some other people in the Twitch community use Video Ninja regularly instead. But
at least you're on his radar.
Oh yeah, he was using it within the first few months of it coming out. I think that might have been the problem. now because a lot has changed since 2-3 years ago since he's used it. But other people in the Twitch community use it though, so that's still kind of nice.
Steve Seguin, did I say it right?
And that's perfectly fine.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you think you would like to try out Video Ninja on your smart device, on your smartphone, on your computers, simply visit vdo.ninja. When did gay pride become just pride?
I can answer that for you, and I can answer what the big turnaround was, and it's a very simple thing. Corporatism is when gay pride became pride. As soon as we got corporate sponsors, as soon as we had the approval of the corporations around us, oh my God, the beer company's going to sponsor it, and they're going to give us a float, and look at the telephone company's going to do something, and someone else is going to do something.
But drop the gay.
Yeah, drop the gay and include everyone. And I always thought, why should we include everyone? This is a gay pride celebration. It is for people who are in a sexual minority. We had something that was for us to make people recognize who we are and to acknowledge that we actually existed.
Award-winning playwright and author Brad Fraser reflects on some important gay history. The time frame, the 1990s. When gay pride becomes pride, with the introduction of corporate sponsorships.
Hi, I'm Agnes. My new record, Magic Still Exists, is out now. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, my 2021 interview with Martha Johnson and Mark Gain, founders of the Canadian iconic 80s group, Martha and the Muffins. and we find out the story behind their hit single, Echo Beach. So Echo Beach, the single that went around the world, top 5 in Canada, top 6 in Australia, top 10 in the UK, reached number 11 on the Irish charts, reached number 37 on the Billboard Dance Chart, won the Juno for Single of the Year, and I believe has close to 30 million streams on Spotify. The album, Metro Music, that featured Echo Beach, went gold. In 2005, the song was named the 35th greatest Canadian song of all times on CBC Radio 1 series 50 Tracks. How did Echo Beach come about? What inspired the song originally?
Well, Mark can answer that because he wrote the song. So take it away, Mark.
Okay, well, a couple of years before the band got together, I had a summer job at a wallpaper factory. And as the summer job person, my job was to separate the bad wallpaper from the good. And what I mean by that is that the factory had these huge presses that printed the design on the wallpaper. And it seemed like quite frequently something would go wrong and they'd grind it to a halt. They'd take this giant roll off and roll it over to me. And then I would have to hand wind the whole thing off and separate the stuff that hadn't been damaged from the stuff that was damaged. So as you can imagine, this wasn't exactly rocket science. So your mind was free to wander where it did. And the germ of the idea was that I'd rather be somewhere else than here. And so when I was writing this song, I couldn't very well say my job is very boring. I'm a wallpaper inspection clerk.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, that doesn't really.
I wouldn't have wanted to sing it that way either.
Yeah, I mean, Martha probably would have refused to sing that anyway, but so I had to find something more universal. And I thought, well, an office clerk, that's a hard job, to be in all the time. Or I imagined that was the case, and the second verse came from a night that a friend of mine who owned a motorcycle and I rode down to Sunnyside Beach on Lake Ontario. And I think we'd smoked a bit of weed and we were looking out there, and looking back at the city seemed like a surrealistic sight. So basically those two ideas came together in the song.
And you were also trying to write a song that Brian Ferry would sing.
That's right.
Lyrically.
Yeah, at the time, Martha and I and some other people in the band were huge Roxy Music fans. And when it came to the lyrics, I thought I was very influenced by Brian Ferry. And I thought, well, how would he do this? And you can imagine, I think you can actually imagine Brian Ferry singing the lyrics to Echo Beach, because I know it's out of fashion and a trifle uncool, but I can't help it. I'm a romantic fool. Like it's so like Noel Coward, and from there to Brian Ferry, like it's more like a 1940s or 30s tongue-in-cheek song, lyrically about being on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever reach out to Brian Ferry when the song was a hit?
Well, they asked us, the Roxy Music asked us to open for them in the UK and Europe. And we did do that. We were on tour with them. We did London, Wembley, and we did a show in Glasgow. And then Brian Ferry came down with kidney stones.
Yeah, kidney stones, and they had to cancel the rest of the tour.
Yeah, they canceled the rest of the tour.
But we did play with them, as Martha says, at Wembley Arena in London and the Glasgow Apollo.
And the band was very friendly, except for Brian Ferry, like before he got sick. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. But he never came back to say hello.
But, we had good talks with Phil Manzanera and Andy McKay and their manager and stuff. And, it was quite something to open for them. And just as an aside, the Glasgow Apollo was notorious for its super high stage. It was like 20 feet high. Nobody could explain why it was so high, but they had warned us because, you know, we were opening for Roxy, so all of our stuff was at the front of the stage. They said, whatever you do not go near the edge of the stage, because I believe there was somebody who fell off and broke their leg or something. So you know, who knows why they designed it that way, but it was crazy high.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.